Great. So thank you so much. Welcome. So we have the honor to have Scott Stornetta joining us. He's going to talk a little bit about his latest venture, SureMark, and then how like blockchain AI is sort of like used as technology to help us with deepfake. Scott, you want to take it over?
Great. Okay, just a couple of opening comments to lay out what I hope I can do, really, which is to foment a discussion, but I'm going to talk a lot about historical issues as well as present issues, try to tie it all together, because what I'm doing with SureMark I see as very much a logical extension of Stuart's and my interests over the last 30 plus years. But I wonder if you would be willing to suffer the hubris of watching a 2-minute video of me that Frederick could hopefully tee up.
Oh. Okay. You want me to go to the website?
What I'd like it, if you could, is if you could go to the SureMark.digital website, and I think you'll understand why I do this after it plays for the 2 minutes. Are you at the SureMark.digital website?
Let me share my screen. Stop. Here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
That the yes, SureMark Digital. Yep.
Okay, now if you would go to the tab that says directory.
Yep.
And then if you would go to the S's.
Okay.
I'm listed in the S's, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and click on my personal entry.
Okay, there are multiple as Scott Stornetta, but I guess it's like all the different like videos.
Yeah, and one of them is highlighted.
Yeah, view profile. Yeah.
Okay, go into view profile.
Yeah.
Okay, now there are multiple videos there, but one of them is highlighted.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, it's a 2-minute video, and I think it will give you a lot of context very quickly about how this whole thing all ties together.
Okay, so let me see if when I play it, if you guys can hear the sound. Can you hear the sound?
No.
Okay.
No.
Hello.
Freddie, I think when either you share your screen, I think there's an option to share sound at the same time.
Let's see.
They're on Google Meet though.
I have not tried that. Now, that said, right, let me give you the page.
There we go.
And then maybe you guys all at the same time start the video for yourself. And then when it's done, we're good. Or like...
I like your decentralized solution.
Yeah. Like basically, I put mine back to 0. Do you guys have all the link open? Good. Okay. So when we get to 0, you can all start together, and then we should hopefully end about at the same time, and then we can keep on from there. 3, 2, 1, go.
Huh? Can't hear it. No sound.
Can anybody hear it?
Nope, not here.
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
can.
to find it on my iPad, but the 2-minute video is not popping up. Others are, though. They look really cool. I have to look at them later.
If you click on the little triangle at the bottom of the video below Scott's glamour shot, black and white glamour shot, you'll be able to hear it, and it's extremely interesting. The only thing it lacks is the Friendly's ice cream story, which I hope Scott will deign to tell us. He's probably sick of telling it sometime today.
Yeah, I think it succinctly states the problem. I think Scott captured that in what he's solving for. So I think that was a good clip to review before we talk.
Is it a deep fake?
Has everyone had a chance to listen to the 2-minute clip?
No.
Nope.
Hear it.
The link is in the chat. You guys can do it on your own, right?
Yeah, that's what I did. I just
Yeah.
Watched it on my own machine quickly. It's only 2 minutes, but
I think it's worth listening to because it frames the rest of what I wanted to talk about and how blockchain and SureMark are linked.
Oh, good.
So just tell me when everyone's good, and then I think we can have a shared framework.
Yeah, the link worked well.
Yeah, it looks like in our decentralized nodes of reading viewing the video, some of the nodes need to catch up. That's it. We're synchronizing right now.
I just want to make sure that 51% of you have seen the same video.
oh, that's right.
So everyone is, are we good?
Yeah,
Good
one more.
Yeah.
Good here. Yeah.
So a couple of things. First of all, I don't view what I have contributed as discrete things. To me, it's all of a piece. It's all of the same arc. And that is, my initial anxiety was about creating immutable records. And what I've suggested in this most recent video is that now our attention has shifted to what I call unforgeable identities. But they both are of a piece in that we're trying to establish a reality, if you will, a shared consensus of reality that is grounded in human witnessing of things. Now, I was a physicist, trained as a physicist, and I initially wanted to somehow measure absolute time and embed it into records. And it was quite a bit of a disappointment to me when I realized that the only problem that really could be solved is to create a consensus about time and records. And so then, as a sop to my physicist mathematicians training, I wanted to make it as universally broad a consensus and witnessing as possible, so that there was a kind of exponentially increase or exponentially decreasing chance that anyone could fake things as the number of witnesses increased. And in that sense, there are many similarities between what Stuart and I are hoping to achieve with unforgeable identities as we are and did or wanted to with the blockchain. But to me, there are common threads that I'm going to discuss, but it's not, okay, how can I use the blockchain to solve the latest problem? That's something that in my world we call, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that phrase. And so unforgeable identities is really very much a sui generis and is not a kind of derivative of the blockchain. It's more like there's a single text from which both are derived, if you're willing to allow that kind of a highfalutin talk. What we think we achieved with the blockchain, and I am 100% aligned with the point that the blockchain is not cryptocurrency, and it's definitely not Bitcoin. And I do not have an axe to grind with Satoshi when I say that. You know, the unlimited arms race of Bitcoin mining is not my favorite cup of tea. But what we think we achieved was, in a sense, encapsulated in the friendly story. And that is, to me, the key insight. And I've often made it clear that Stuart has his own story about the key insight. So I'm not trying to assert something more than what he has. But the key insight that came to me at the Friendlies was in the effort to salvage our few months of work in trying to achieve what we were starting to conclude was impossible, was to create an elegant proof that you can't remove trust from a system, that there's always got to be somebody that you rely on. So in the midst of creating that proof, we used a reductio ad absurdum argument, or a reductio ad infinitum argument, that was trying to prove the opposite. And the argument went like this: look, if you have two parties involved in some kind of record creation, then they certainly could collude with each other. Nothing to stop that. And the only way you'd have any hope of preventing the collusion would be to have a third person looking over their shoulder to witness what they were doing. But then if they drew the third person into the collusion, then you'd need a fourth person looking over the third person's shoulder. And as you know, how these arguments, sort of mathematical induction arguments work, you end up with n going to infinity, the number of over-the-shoulder witnesses. And so you end up saying the only way you could make this work is if you had a collusion that involved everyone in the world. And that's obviously absurd. And it was really right at that moment that we realized that that wasn't a proof that you couldn't do it. That was how you did it. You create a collusion that is so widespread that it becomes the grounded truth that everyone agrees on. And so for me, it's just so crucial that the blockchain relies not only on the immutability due to the one-way nature of hash functions, but also that it's created one step at a time by widely witnessed events. And that's really what you have, in my opinion, in both the blockchain and what I'm going to talk about with respect to SureMark. There's also a kind of immutability that I'll talk about that works the same way. So what is it about SureMark that we're trying to do? Well, a lot of entry points you can talk about, but let me just suggest one of many. Let's talk about the FBI. That's the Federal Bureau of Investigation, for those of you that are not familiar with any three-letter acronyms coming out of the federal government. I assume that's a set of zero. The FBI recently issued advice about how individual, ordinary people can deal with deepfakes. And their suggestion was that each family have a code word, and that to check to make sure that that it's really your son or daughter or mom or whatever on the phone, you ask for the code word. Okay. Well, as we all know, that requires n-squared code words if you want to scale to include the broader community. And of course, what we all know is that public key, asymmetric public-private key pairs turns the n-squared problem into a order n problem. We all publish our public key, we all keep our private key private, and we don't forget it. And then we can play the FBI's proposed game at scale. Let me come at it from another direction, though, that also involves the FBI. And that is, if you want to play that game of everyone having their public-private key pair, you have two problems. One, you got to make darn sure that the key pair that is bound to an individual is really being bound to that individual. That's what I call the binding problem. And then there's an old joke, I guess, amongst a very small community of people that goes something like this. Cryptography is the art of turning any problem into a key management problem. In other words, cryptography, in a sense, isn't solving anything. It's just kicking the can down the road and turning it into a horrible key management problem. And so the binding issue and the key management issue, it's sort of like this would work in theory if we could just solve these two challenging problems. And there again, I want to use an FBI analogy, and that is, you know, the FBI, let's say, vets people for the federal government, you know, serve in the current, and I'm happy to put it in quotes as well, administration, close quote. But the process they use is they do background checks, and they do biometric tests, and they look at government issued IDs, and they interview a lot of people, and then they assert a stamp of authority that says FBI verified. You know, this person has been checked out. And what they issue to Congress or the general public is simply something that says, we've verified them. We're not going to reveal the details. That's confidential. You just need to trust us that we've verified this person. Okay. And that for me is, you know, fundamentally unacceptable in the world that I want to create. And so what I want is a way to solve the binding problem that is entirely transparent, that is publicly validatable, and is enormously widely witnessed, as opposed to a trusted third-party FBI solution to the binding problem. And then there's the other half. I want to solve the key management problem, both with respect to rotation, revocation, restoration, in a way that also works in a fully transparent but confidential way, so that ordinary, you know, Janes and Johns can deal with signing things without any technical competency required. And so what you're looking at when you look at that directory page is, oh, I guess, and a third thing that I want to achieve, and that is there's an entity that is doing the binding and the key management problem, but I want the entity to be not in control of the process, but a midwife to the process, so that if that entity disappeared eventually or was unavailable, that the system would still work in a fully decentralized way. It's more like the role of SureMark. When I say midwife, it's an accelerant to the process. So what are the basic ideas? The first idea is I'm going to make a guess, and that is that many people here would be familiar with Phil Zimmerman's, what do we call it, web of trust notion, where you pass along in your email, because it was an email, it was a pre World Wide Web days, this is my key, and I'm vouching for this person, and so you get in separate from the way the world works. And I just realized I really should be showing my face at this point. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over to my laptop. Is that okay? Can I?
Do we really know it's you?
Well, by the end, you'll know how to know it's me. And even better, in the true spirit of decentralized, each of you will also be able to cross-witness to the authenticity of this video in a publicly verifiable way. You will all be able to contribute to the proof that this is really collectively us that had this conversation. So if you'll just let me switch over. Today is Friday. And where is that link? I'm just gonna, how do I turn my full screen? Where is my link?
Give me your calendar.
Okay, it's in the.
Do you want me to just bring it up on my computer?
Yes, if you can do that. My wife, my minder, is going to solve this problem. And I promise to stay within the time frame that we have given.
Oh, you're cool.
Anyway, in Phil Zimmerman's system, what you have, and it's okay. I'm gonna hang up. All right, am I there? No,
I hear your audio. I see video.
Yeah. Okay. In Phil Zimmerman's system, it's thought of, if you will, as a contrast to X.509, right? Because it's not a central hierarchy that is, blessing you with identity in a hierarchical descent from the master root key. But it is a linear, acyclic transfer of authority in a all or nothing sense. And it's worth reflecting on the fact that it was a cool sounding idea and yet hasn't really taken off. The reason I mention that is not to disparage Phil, but to note that successful cryptographic systems rely on understanding the inherent incentives of each person and somehow getting the incentives aligned in the operation of the system. You have to properly socially embed your mathematical solution so that it has legs and keeps going. And probably the best example of that goes back to Satoshi, and the fact that he created an enormous incentive with the mining. You know, Stuart and I imagined nodes that were validation nodes. In other words, massive replication of the database. But we imagined them incentivized in something that's much closer to what, you know, people now call Ethereum's proof of stake. In other words, validation nodes got paid to validate, basically, but they couldn't reap enormous windfalls in a recursively created currency. Anyway, having said all of that, let me state how you bind your identity in a decentralized way. And that is, simply stated, you prove who you are by showing who you know. What you see if you go to the SureMark directory under Stornetta, for example, and if you've downloaded the Chrome extension, that's all that's available right now. The iPhone Safari version is coming out in a couple of weeks. It's in beta. But if you download the Chrome extension, and I'm going to try to now... Is there anyone here, Frederick, by any chance, have you downloaded the Chrome Web Store SureMark extension?
I have. This is
Okay.
Marquee.
Okay,
Yeah.
Marquis, can you quickly check what version you have of it? And then I'm going to invite you to screen share so everyone can see the gist of the idea actually implemented.
Okay. Is that it? Well, let's see. Browser extension version. I just downloaded it. Where would I see?
So you go to Manage Extensions.
Yeah. And then
you drill down on the SureMark browser extension.
And then
What have you got? What version?
2.1.0.
Okay, that's great. If you could share screen and go to the directory.
Yeah. Entire screen. There we are. If everybody can see, here's the directory.
Okay, now go to S for Stornetta. Okay, now I want everyone to know, okay, there's one other thing you'll need to do. If you go back to managing the extensions, the thing that looks like that little puzzle piece in the upper right.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to pin the SureMark browser. Okay, now here we are. Okay, can everybody see that little icon in the upper, that /S/? Okay, this is intended to be the equivalent of, remember when HTTPS was just reserved for the billing part of websites because of the, slowness of it? And the browsers would have this icon that was a padlock that was either open or closed. Okay, that's what the SureMark icon is intended to be. And now go ahead and click on my individual web page. Now, what's happening in the background, what's already happened in the background, is that you'll notice that the icon has shifted from /S/ to a check mark. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on is it's run all those videos, it's hashed them all, and then it's checked to see if any of them have been signed by anyone in the public directory. So click on the icon itself, the check mark, and you can drill down and see the proof. Okay, here it is. What you see is There's my self-introduction video. That's authorized by me. There's, yes, I did get license plate 000000. And Stuart has 000001. That way we can both sort of say, oh yeah, I have the first license plate. It's whether you're talking to, zero-based thinkers or whole number-based thinkers. Anyway, what's important here is you've got 3 videos that are cross-signed, okay? This is the prove who you are by showing who you know. Omid Malakin is a professor at Columbia and very prominent in the academic cryptocurrency space, often cited, widely regarded. Stuart Haber, we all know who Stuart Haber is. And then Joshua Gans is an economist, pretty well-known economist. You can look up all of these people's Wikipedia pages, for example. And what has happened is we had pairwise interviews between each of us that have now been cross-signed. And so why should you believe I'm Scott Stornetta? Because I'm the Scott Stornetta that got Omid Malakin and Stuart Haber and Joshua Gans to cross-sign for me, to effectively vouch for me. Notice how different, how there's a similarity of spirit with what Phil Zimmerman did, but it's much more decentralized. And then you might say, okay, but this person, Omid, that's vouching for you, he could be a digital fake. Well, yes, that's true. That's true. But when he posts on his social media channels that he's using SureMark and points us to this link, then we know the Omid that is bound to this key is also the Omid that happens to own several social media channels purporting to be Omid with tens of thousands of followers. Similarly for Stuart, maybe a little less so for Stuart because not such a public person. Similarly for Josh Gans. And then they in turn are vouched by other people as they try to assert their credibility. And so what you end up with is a complete publicly available record of the cross-witnessing of these people that also incorporates all of their social media followers as witnesses, if you will. And what you can do, how many people know how the Google PageRank algorithm works? You familiar with that? What you eventually construct, Google PageRank works by recursively creating a credibility network that sort of bootstraps itself. And we can do the same thing with creating this widely witnessed network of trust so that every time you add additional people, it's like in the spirit of a zero knowledge proof, after one trial, there's a 50% chance that they really don't know what they're talking about. But after true trials, there's only a 25% chance. And after N trials, there's only a 1/2 to the N chance. And eventually people get exhausted and decide, yeah, they probably do know what they're talking about. In this same sense, there's this exponential decay of credibility or of the chance that someone has faked this. Okay, that's how we do the binding part. Now, it's also possible, I'm just going to mention this in passing, it doesn't have to be bound to a human being. In other words, if you think about Satoshi, for an example, Satoshi can have a SureMark credential. Doesn't have to reveal his physical life form existence. He's creating an identity by the things that he signs. He is the sum total of everything that he has signed. That constitutes the identity of the person. In many situations, if not at least at this stage in evolution, the vast majority of situations, you will also want to bind your identity to the human being, but it's not requisite. Now notice, there's no biometrics in this system. There's no government issued IDs in this system. It's all widely witnessed events that create that are anchored in a network that can be made so deep and broad that you just can't fake it.
Scott, I've got a question. It's more of a societal question and how it fits into that more than a mathematical question. And it's this. If the entity like Satoshi, say the Nobel Prize Committee wanted to give Satoshi a Nobel Prize in economics.
Okay.
And we don't have a human being. And so how could they transfer money to this entity? Would this money be able to land with a person? Is this going to be similar to going to something different, a corporation having the same sort of rights as an individual? Do you see where I'm going with this question?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And regrettably, I'm gonna stick to our time commitment. We could talk for quite some time just on this topic, but let me add a couple of threads. In a sense, Bitcoin, Satoshi already has defined himself and has also defined how one can give him money, right? So Satoshi lives on the Bitcoin network. Now, the fact that he's been inactive for, quite some time, that further complicates it. But so in the sense of transferring of funds, as long as you can transfer funds to a public key, then, maybe Bitcoin does have a use case after all. And again, I say that partly in jest because I'm not trying to minimize what Bitcoin has done, only that I think it's created a kind of odd duck, a sort of amphibian along the way to what's possible, both financially as well as more broadly in blockchain. And it's kind of stuck at that awkward amphibian stage because it's fundamentally, it's not a medium of exchange, okay? It's become what some want to suggest is a store of value, but it's become a store of speculative, hoping that it keeps increasing store of value.
Scott,
And it's certainly not a unit of account.
forgive me, but this
Go
is
ahead,
not-
Ralph.
and I know a little bit about this. Okay, the Javon's three prongs of moneyness that Javon's laid out: medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account. Bitcoin flunks all three. A store value, yes, but store, no. Okay,
Right.
Store implies stability. Okay,
Right.
and if there's anything we know about Bitcoin, there is zero stability. It's enormously volatile. It has always been enormously volatile, and by its very nature, it will always be enormously volatile because although there's a defined supply, demand is incalculable. And since it doesn't actually have a use other than as a speculative,
there's no gold equivalent kind of
right? It's
use
not
case to ground it.
right. We know gold has maintained its buying power for at least 2,000 years, maybe longer. One ounce of gold would buy you a fine Roman toga, and 1 ounce of gold will buy you a fine Seville Row suit today. And we have enormous amounts of data backing that up. So
That's better than the Big Mac index in the economy.
Yes, it is. And there are books of compilation that are definitive about this. So it's not, it's grounded in experience. So I'm ratifying what you're saying. Bitcoin, there are three elements to moneyness: unit of account, clearly not that, because that implies stability; store of value, emphasis on store, not there; and medium of exchange at 7 transactions per second, unless you go to a L2, which re-centralizes, then you just can't go and buy a pack of gum at a 7-Eleven with Bitcoin and then wait for hours for it to process the transaction because it's 7 TPS. It's way too slow. So
Anyway, I guess my point is the identity that is Satoshi or if we could pick a better case, someone that doesn't want to be known. And, that could be, the North Korean that hacked whatever, or it could be someone that is an honorable person, but just chooses to remain anonymous. There are ways of transferring funds to them. Okay. And, the fact that Satoshi can't appear at the Nobel, whatever, memorial services, and I do know that the economics prize is really a fork off, is not like the rest of them. One of these things is not like the other. Money could be transferred to them, and he could accept the prize simply by countersigning with a key bound to his identity. I'd like to extend a little bit further and note that while SureMark, which is trying to be a viable business, okay, something that sustains its operations based on income, while its initial target market are high visibility individuals, both because they need to protect their online brand, because they're able to afford the SureMark credential, and because being so widely witnessed sort of goes to the heart of how to bootstrap this system, it's envisioned that essentially everyone will be able over time to obtain a SureMark credential at an inconsequential cost. And so I'm going to call that my best effort to respond to you, because I want to make one more point before we go off, and I want to at least reserve time for a couple of questions. And that is, this video will become a bit string. Because I have a SureMark credential, I will be able to sign it, including solving the scrubbing of metadata problem and the multiple formats that YouTube is going to torturously put this bit string through, so that people just like Marquis was able to view my signature on those other videos, he'll be able to view it on this one. But equally importantly, because I'm a SureMark credential holder, I can invite each of you to have a free SureMark limited use credential that allows you to cross-sign this video. And so when this video appears, it will appear with the backing of the signatures of whatever, how many want to play, 10 people in total. We are collectively witnessing that we were there, we were participants, and we may be lying, but we are bound to that commitment that it's us that's lying. And I think maybe I'm just going to close there because I didn't mean to take all the time talking.
No, I think that was great, and actually it's some of the question that I think like we're having. So when you're saying, okay, we can have like a limited use of a token that allows us to pretty much like sign the and verify this video, then if in the future we were to want to get another a license plate, as you were talking about, then does that mean that now we have two different ways of signing? Or
it's a great question. You're going to all get a license plate. It's just the license plate will be limited in its use to objects that you are invited to by a full use credential holder.
Oh, nice. Okay. So that's where the full use.
If you want a low license plate number, then now's the time to respond to my invitation, and you will permanently have a very low license plate number.
Nice, awesome.
It can't be used. It can't be used for very much.
Yeah.
But you can convert it into one if you pay the credential fee. So.
Okay. Cool. Now, awesome. Marky, do you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I think Scott just answered it on the back end. That the access that a license plate gets can be scaled up I'm thinking in the context of, okay, SureMark Digital is a known quantity to validate a person's identity, and it gets to the point where you want to be able to identify your children, right, to a doctor, etc. And the child is 5 now, but when they're 18, they want their own agency to be able to, etc. Similarly, you know, I want one for my mom who's 85, and maybe at 90, she doesn't want to put all the puzzle pieces together. So we want to diminish what she can do actively and then have custodial, etc. So I think I got from what you were just saying, but I wanted to verify that this is an identity component that is scalable in its capability to access certain data points based on a person's, you know.
Absolutely. And let me just further drive the point, Marquis. If you became a SureMark credential holder, you could issue limited use licenses to every one of your relatives. And you wouldn't just be doing them a favor, but you would be further buttressing the fact that it's you, because the document that you would invite them to sign is simply an attestation that I'm Marquis and this is my mom.
Right.
And she's
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
I'm so-and-so and Marquis is my son.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting back to the you know, being able to demonstrate who we know as a component of who we are.
Yes.
So, sure. Before you get your question, so we are 3 minutes to the end. I just wanted to make sure that we respect the time of everybody. Right now, I'm perfectly okay with staying a little bit more minutes, but I want to make sure that I respect your time also, Scott.
I can certainly stay for a few minutes if it's helpful.
Okay, okay, awesome.
When you sign up for a time slot, I respect the fact that we all have lives. And
yes. Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to make sure. So okay, so we'll extend for a few more minutes for whoever can stay.
But what you should consider doing, Frederick,
yes,
is stopping the recording right at the end of the hour, so that the people that need to leave can still be witnesses in full faith and credit to the part that they're signing.
yes, actually, what I was going to do was like conclude the presentation now. Say like, thank you very much for like your presentation and stuff. Then we can close the video, and then and that way, as you said, we can have that for the signing. So I'm just gonna do that now. Thank you so much, Scott, for being with us and talking to us about this wonderful thing.
Again, it's really a pleasure to speak to a group like this, because you know, in the very spirit of decentralization, this is really a peer-to-peer conversation. You know, we all enjoy thinking about the same kinds of things and all of its mathematical implications, but also and underpinnings, but also all of its social implications. And that's all I am. And it's just that I've obsessed in my life about two things, and these are the two things: immutable records and unforgeable identities. And I hope we can make it a win, a group win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording now. And